Hey Seabreeze, we are doing this Next Move campaign where we're raising $2.5 million to pay for a new kids building and expansion of the basketball courts. And through this process, we're asking everybody to pray about giving a gift one time by the end of the year and then making a financial commitment over the next 3 years. It would be a commitment that's over your regular giving over a 3-year period. So we're asking everybody to pray about how God might want them to be involved. And then the Sunday where we kind of share that, our commitment Sunday, is on November 8th. So I wanted Bevan to talk a little bit about this project and kind of how we got to the point where we're at. So I've got a couple questions for him. And the first one is, why are we building a kids building during a global pandemic?
Obviously, that's probably the first question that pops in everyone's mind. First one that comes to my mind. I think this year is going to leave an impression on us, obviously, for a long time, maybe a generation in some ways. And it's hard to know exactly what that impression will be, but from what I have observed, I think there's going to be two truths that are becoming more and more clear now and will be more and more clear even as we move beyond the pandemic. And those two truths that everyone I think are going to be more and more aware of is, number one, just how unstable life really is. Before this pandemic, I think there was this illusion of security and stability, and now that's pretty much gone. And I think the second impression, or the second idea that's really going to linger with us for a long time, is the notion that the answers that this world gives really do not solve the problems of this world. So I think those two realities represent an opportunity. And I think the opportunity is to, open people up more and more to the truth that God provides, His answers to the problems of the world. And the second thing is the stability that a relationship with God gives beyond the circumstances of this world. So I think the opportunity that's represented in this is for people to be more and more open to the things of God as we emerge from this pandemic. So as I've thought more and more about this, prayed about it, talked with the other leaders at Seabreeze, one of the things that became clear to me is that we need to do everything we can right now in the middle of this pandemic to put ourselves in a position to get ready so that when we emerge from this, fully emerge from this, not just the tears and the colors, but when we're done with all that and we're on the other side of this, that we emerge in a position where we can really be ready to make the most of the opportunities of what God's going to be doing in people's hearts. And so I think that's why now is the time to raise the money, to build this building, get it done as soon as we can so that we can be ready to really make the most of the opportunities I think God's going to present on the other side of this pandemic.
Something that challenges me about that is just how proactive it is. It's not just kind of a sitting back, but it's saying like this, there's a unique opportunity in this season and we want to seize that. So there's a lot of movement. So that I find that really inspiring.
Yeah, and that was part of my realization too. Is there was a time in the summer where I was discouraged, probably like we've all gotten in kind of a funk about this, and I was thinking about what we're supposed to do as a church, and I remembered the first statement that Jesus made about the church. Really, you can call it the birth certificate of the church, and He described the church as something that the gates of hell would not prevail against. And what that means basically is we are an offensive, advancing force against evil in this world. And I realized at that point is that I need to change my thinking from how can we survive this to how can we make the most of this? How can we advance in this stage with all the limitations that we're all faced with?
That's great. How did we get to this point with the plans? So we've kind of got the architectural drawings and some other plans, but how did we get to this point?
Well, when we moved onto this site 13 years ago, obviously we stretched tremendously, and God miraculously provided for us to be able to do this. So we couldn't afford to build out the entire site with all of the balance and the needs and everything that would be required. So we knew at the very beginning that we were at some point going to need to do something like this to complete the property. The only question was the timing and when that would work. And so for the past 3+ years or so, we've both been setting aside money in the budget to prepare ourselves financially to put some money towards something like this. And we've also been talking with and consulting with a lot of different experts, designers, on how to best make use of the property we have. And so we've been working on different ideas of a plan really for over 3 years now. And then just this last year, about a year ago from now, we submitted kind of the first iteration of our plan to the church and asked for their input, their assessment on that. And so we took a lot of that input, and that brought us to the particular plan that we've got right now of building the kids building over center court and expanding the upward basketball courts and a few other things beyond that. So that's, we've been on our way here ever since we moved onto this site, but that's how we got to this place in this particular year.
What do you find exciting about this project?
I think two main things. Probably the thing that excites me most is the change opportunity that's represented for this in the people of Seabreeze themselves. I heard a church leader, I think it was probably 18 years ago, say that a capital campaign, a fundraising type of effort like this, he thought can be one of the most healthy things that a church can go through. And I remember when I heard that, I thought, that makes no sense to me at all. It sounds like a lot of strain and a lot of awkward conversations when you talk about money. So how can that be the healthiest thing that a church can go through? But having gone through this kind of thing a couple times now at Seabreeze, I completely agree. Because what I've seen is that whenever people who consider this church to be their home, they take this opportunity seriously, and if they're married, their spouses, they pray about it, they ponder it, they look at all that God's given them, and they ask God, what do you want us to do? That whole process, that multi-week long or maybe multi-month long process of wrestling with, what our future financial plans are and what does God want us to do, and are we going to trust Him with this, or does He? All of that whole process is a profoundly spiritual experience, and it just really gets at the heart of things. And so on the other side of this, for the people that take this serious and give the gift that God leads them to give, what I've seen is just tremendous personal growth for them, spiritual growth. People don't sacrifice financially for a project that has God's name on it and then not take the things of God seriously on the backside of that. They usually lean more into, once they've given, they then go on to say, okay, now what more can I do? Or how else can I serve? Or what are some ways that I can grow? And so that's one of the things that really excites me, is that I know on the backside of this by experience that the spiritual temperature or growth of the people of Seabreeze across the board is going to go up because of this. And that's just really exciting to me, especially coming out of a pandemic when I think, the temperature has kind of gotten cool just as we've been in isolation. So I think it's just a tremendous, exciting opportunity. The second thing I think that really excites me is the opportunity to impact future generations. We're building a kids building because that is the best way to balance the site with the capacity of the auditorium and the youth and the parking and all of that. But what it represents is the opportunity to partner with parents to train up children who can not only live their lives the way that God has designed life to be lived, but who can influence and be leaders and impact this community and this world in a way that this year has really shown us we really need people who understand God's ways and who are living God's ways in order to really help solve the problems of this world. So the chance to do our part in this community to advance the next generation, long after older people like myself are gone, I mean, I can't imagine how exciting that's going to be able to do something like that.
That's really good. I appreciate hearing that, and I know everybody else does too. And I appreciate you leading us to do this. I know this is a risk, but you've led us to do it, and I really appreciate you following God and taking that risk, and excited to see what God does as we pray about how we can be involved.
That's great. Thanks.
So, thanks, Bevan.